Naomi's situation has just been addressed for the first time on television, so we'll see the big update there. We'll also check out what's going on with Liv Morgan, the Wyatt Sicks, and more. Starting things off with everything that's new for Naomi and her status. To recap the events so far, it all started when Naomi was pulled from a title defense just hours before Raw for not being medically cleared. That caused an instant panic amongst the community, because there was no word that Naomi was injured in any way. So what popped up out of nowhere that caused her to no longer be cleared to compete? That's what everyone wanted to know. And after that took place, then you had the reports that were all claiming the same thing, that if the rumors were true, Naomi was going to be truly out of action for a very long time. And that's where everything stayed at until the August 15th edition of SmackDown. On this edition of SmackDown, the commentary team announced and confirmed that Naomi will be appearing on the August 18th edition of Raw to speak to the fans. And then during the commercial breaks of SmackDown, they were also airing a commercial for this week's Raw that heavily featured Naomi, and how she was set to address the state of the Women's World title on this week's Raw. So the days of being in the dark about this entire situation are about to end with this week's Raw. That's where WWE and Naomi will reveal what's keeping her from being medically cleared. The fact that the company is advertising Naomi's segment as her addressing the WWE Universe and addressing the state of the Women's World title, those are some keywords there that usually imply that the superstar in question is about to reveal whatever it is that's keeping them out of the ring and vacant the title, all in the same segment. That's what they're advertising it as, so some fans are feeling nervous about that being the case here. In reality, there's obviously only two ways for this Naomi segment to go in. Naomi either comes out to reveal what the situation is, says her emotional goodbye, and relinquishes the championship, or we get another ruse and fake out situation where it looks like Naomi has to step away from the ring, but then she swerves everyone and reveals that she's fine. That's it. That's literally the only two possible outcomes for this Naomi segment here on Raw. It's either to say goodbye or to swerve everyone, one or the other. So that segment on Monday will be a very big moment of Naomi breaking her silence, and a big reveal for the future of the Women's World title. If Naomi is truly out of action, maybe it's possible that they crown a new champion at Clash in Paris, since that event is only a few weeks away. And like we mentioned earlier in the week, Stephanie and Sky are the two women closest to the championship that had owed title matches. So if a new champion needs to be crowned, those two women seem like very big candidates for that Clash in Paris championship matchup. Either way, answers will finally be provided on Monday Night Raw, so that will be a massive segment right there. Speaking of updates, there's been an update to Liv Morgan's status. Liv went down with a freakish shoulder injury back in June that was a real gut punch because she was on top of the world and had so much stories revolving around her. So to lose her at that point right there was so rough. But ever since she went down, fans have been curious to know when is she returning, so that this whole entire story with the Judgment Day could advance. Well, new reports from PW Insider claims that the company is currently very hopeful for an early 2026 return for Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan missing the entire rest of 2025 was one of the biggest rumored possibilities since she first went down, and now this latest update appears to once again reinforce that same idea. So it's looking like Royal Rumble is still the ideal place for Liv Morgan's return to take place at. It fits that early 2026 timeframe and would be a perfect spot for a big return like Liv's. So it's something that fans are discussing. A twist they could do for Liv Morgan's story that fans have been talking about as well is bringing Liv back earlier in a non-physical manager type of role. Finn has been very excited as of late that he doesn't have to see or deal with Liv Morgan until next year. So a very unpleasant surprise for Finn would be if Liv Morgan returns much earlier than 2026, just to catch the whole group by surprise and just get a close look at what's happening within the Judgment Day. She won't be able to get physical, but if she returns early, she can still advance the story with Finn and the Judgment Day in many verbal ways. So that's a popular idea fans have been discussing, but there's been no solid news on them bringing Liv back for a non-physical role. That's strictly the fans that were thinking about that possibility. But if they're not going to use Liv Morgan in a non-physical role, then you're still looking at least another 4 to 5 months before seeing Liv Morgan again. The usage and booking of the Wyatt Sicks has been something that has really been under a microscope by fans. With the original Wyatt family, it felt like there was always a theory to discuss, always something that you could talk about. That hasn't really been the case for the Wyatt Sicks, but something did happen on August 15th that gave fans a glimmer of hope for something interesting that's going on, and finally something to talk about and theorize on. And that's of course all the intense stalking that was going on with the Wyatt Sicks members all night long. For the first time in a long time, the Wyatt Sicks presence was felt in multiple parts of the show, in little subtle ways. During the conversation between Tiffany Stratton and Kiana James, Nikki Cross can be seen over to the far right of the screen, listening into the conversation, which can most definitely be seen as Nikki Cross potentially having her eyes on the WWE Women's title. Nikki Cross is a former world champion herself, and it's been a handful of years since she last held a world title. But with her now stalking Tiffany Stratton, you can assume that it's only a matter of time before Nikki can make a push at the championship. Nikki is observing Tiffany closely, so you never know when she may strike. If that is meant to tease a Nikki versus Tiffany program, that would be pretty cool, since Nikki Cross really hasn't had much in-ring action since joining the Wyatt Sicks. So a match against Tiffany will be Nikki's first real program since joining the Wyatt family. Then during the Miz and Carmelo's tag team match, Joe Gacy and Dexter Lumis stood motionless in the crowd, just observing and watching the action. The way those Wyatt cameo appearances were shot definitely gave flashback vibes to Bray's 2022 return, where the camera cut to the puppets in the crowd in a very similar way. And then in the background of Solo Sikoa and MFT's segment, you can see Tala being a little bit paranoid and looking back constantly. And once MFT is out of the shot, you can see Eric Rowan far in the distance, just watching them. And then during the backstage argument between the Motor City Machine Guns and Mellow Don't Miz, Uncle Howdy can be seen on the left side of the frame, also stalking and observing what's going on. So after quite a long time, finally something interesting and worth talking about here with the Wyatt Sicks. 4 separate segments throughout the show in which Wyatt members appeared in and had their eyes on a target. And if you add up everyone that was being stalked by the Wyatt Sicks, you get a pretty long list of big targets. Big names like Tiffany Stratton, Kiana James, Carmelo Hayes, The Miz, MFT, The Street Profits, Motor City Machine Guns, and more. Now it's very possible that the stalking segments throughout the night mean absolutely nothing at all, and was simply just a way to book the Wyatt Sicks on the show for the week. Or it's possible that they could have meaning after all, and could be setting up something major. A big theory that's going around right now is that all the stalking segments could be setting up a second version of the Wyatt Sicks massacre. When the Wyatt Sicks first came onto the scene, they did it by unexpectedly attacking everyone backstage and wiping them out, including Chad Gable and other backstage personnel. So with their eyes on so many people right now, could they be planning another similar massacre type of event? Just a situation where they attack all of those superstars backstage and just leave them there in all that pain, similar to what they did with their debut. That's the big fan theory right there, and it's most definitely an interesting one for sure. Even if they don't go down the massacre route, fans just hope something of meaning and purpose comes out of these stalking SmackDown moments for the Wyatt Sicks. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.